My name was Hassan. I was a judge, a figure of authority in a city that thrived on justice and diversity. My reputation was built on the rigid application of the law and the unwavering adherence to my faith. On the outside, I wore a mask of respectability. On the inside, I was suffocating, trapped in a cage of expectations that left my spirit hollow and aching. I had dedicated my life to Islam, yet in the silence of my prayers, a gnawing emptiness echoed back at me, each repetition a reminder of my discontent. That emptiness turned to darkness as dreams began to haunt me. Visions of a light I couldn't understand pierced my sleep, revealing a world beyond the confines of my beliefs. I was consumed by questions that felt too dangerous to voice. Was I missing something? Was there more to truth than what I had been taught? Little did I know that the answers would come during a pivotal moment in the courtroom, a moment that shattered everything I thought I knew. It happened unexpectedly while I awaited a verdict. I was surrounded by lawyers, witnesses, and a crowd filled with anticipation. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A warmth enveloped me, and in an instant, I found myself standing before an extraordinary vision of Jesus. He called my name. The sheer power of that moment transcended all barriers, languages, and doctrines. It was as if he whispered secrets of a spiritual conflict that had long been obscured by religious dogma, secrets that demanded to be unveiled. Returning to reality was not an easy transition. I was faced with hostility from my community, branded a traitor for daring to embrace the truth shown to me. Guilt and fear mounted within me. How could I reconcile this newfound peace with the life I had lived? A duality began to consume my every thought. The weight of my choice felt immense, but the responsibility to share this revelation pulled at my heart. Despite the danger, I sought a deeper understanding, devouring texts, watching testimonies, and connecting with others who had crossed the threshold of belief into a profound new reality. Each step pushed me closer to a purpose I never imagined I would carry. I realized this was not merely my journey. It was a call to arms in a spiritual battle that demands awareness. Today, I step forward to share my experience, a story forged in doubt and rebirth. And if you're hearing my voice, if you feel that same stirring within you, then listen closely. You are not alone. There's a growing movement of truth spilling into the cracks of our fractured world, beckoning us to awaken. Before we dive deeper into this transformation, I urge you to comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time is it in your corner of the world? I want to feel the global heartbeat of this revelation. And if you love Jesus and yearn for more of this truth, I invite you to subscribe to Truth from Beyond. You don't want to miss the next wave of discovery we're about to embark on together. I've spent over a decade as a judge in the bustling courts of Washington, D.C., a role that brings both weight and responsibility. I often find myself entrenched between tradition and modernity, navigating the fierce currents of cultural and religious diversity. My name is Fareed, a Muslim, and while I wear my faith proudly, there's been a growing void within me, an emptiness that no amount of courtroom victories could fill. It was during a particularly grueling case, involving matters of intense societal division, that my understanding of justice was radically tested. The case was fraught with tension, as the verdict carried the weight of expectations not just from the law but from the community. One evening, after the tension of the day had settled, I went home feeling drained and desolate. That night, as I lay awake, something inexplicable pulled me out of my body. It was as though all the noise of this world faded, replaced by an engulfing silence. In that tranquility, I found myself in an ethereal space, illuminated by a blinding light. In the center stood Jesus, radiating warmth and love that transcended earthly understanding. I felt drawn to him, an unshakable urge to know him, to listen. As I looked into his eyes, I was flooded with a visceral understanding, an awakening that began to unravel the very fabric of my being. He spoke, and his voice reverberated with authority and compassion, revealing areas of deception that had slipped beneath my critical eye. "Fareed," he said, "the truth you seek is obscured by a hidden agenda, orchestrated by the elite who thrive in the shadows." Visions filled my mind, war-torn landscapes, innocents suffering while powerful leaders pushed their self-serving agendas. I saw the manipulation of information, the way technology has been wielded as a weapon of division rather than a bridge of understanding. Each revelation shook me to my core. I began to comprehend that the spiritual war one was part of was not confined to the courtroom, but echoed through every aspect of life. Jesus urged me to raise my voice, to confront the deception that held so many captive in their ignorance. The urgency of this call haunted me. I felt a pressing need to awaken those who slumbered in societal norms, unaware of the greater battle unfolding. "The deception is deep," Jesus continued, "but the awakening will be greater." I could see how fear was a tool wielded by those in power, manipulating the populace into compliance while stoking the fires of division. It was a painful truth that reflected my own struggles as a judge. How often had I been caught in the web of expectations, balancing the demands of justice with the necessity of compassion? The visions intensified, and I found myself witnessing families torn apart, neighbors turned into adversaries, all in the name of ideologies that served only a few, while the rest fought among themselves. As the clarity of the revelations washed over me, I felt the burden of responsibility. I was being summoned to use my position to not merely enforce the law, but to challenge the systems built upon lies. Every decision I rendered could either uphold the lie or shed light on the truth. My heart raced as I understood that this spiritual war was not just external. It resonated within our hearts and minds. Jesus' message was clear. The time for inaction had passed, and I had a role to play in this vital awakening. But just as suddenly as the encounter began, I felt the grip of reality pulling me back. Thoughts of courtroom proceedings, the weight of justice, and the implications of my choices rushed back to me. As I opened my eyes to the dim light of dawn, the resolve I felt was undeniable. Walking into that courthouse later that day, I looked at my role through new lenses. The faces of those I judged were no longer strangers. They were fellow travelers in this fight against deception. The verdict I was set to deliver loomed larger than ever, now seen through the prism of spiritual warfare. Each word I spoke was a testament to the truth I had been awakened to. Dismissed by many as mere rhetoric, I knew these were battles of spirit, fought in each courtroom, each decision, each discussion echoing the larger war for humanity's collective awakening. How could I make them see what I now understood? How could I share the urgency of this truth? The hour had come to reflect that awakening in each judgment and each life, touched by that very decision, and so my journey began anew, poised at the precipice of divine challenge. I've spent my life dedicated to the law, a Muslim judge in Washington, D.C. I wear my title like a badge of honor, known for my strict application of the law and my unwavering commitment to justice. Yet beneath this exterior lies a tumultuous sea of emotional emptiness. The demands of my faith weigh heavily on me, and despite my best efforts to honor those expectations, I often feel suffocated by an obedience that doesn't fulfill my spirit. The more I strive to fit into the rigid mold of what it means to be a judge, the more lost I become. In the courtroom, I wear a mask of authority, but inside, I'm wrestling with doubts and a longing for something deeper, something more profound than the hollow rituals that define my daily life. It was during a rather chaotic trial that I faced a turning point. I remember sitting there, the clamor of voices drowning each other out, the weight of justice pressing down on me like a heavy cloud. As I prepared to deliver the verdict, something shifted inside me. I suddenly felt an overwhelming wave of darkness wash over me. I could hardly breathe, and the room began to blur into insignificance. Everything I had built my life upon, the expectations, The rituals, even my identity as a judge, faded into the background. In this moment of despair, I was enveloped in a profound silence, and within that silence, I was transported to a different realm. In this ethereal space, I encountered Jesus. His figure radiated a warmth that pierced through the darkness I felt. He looked at me with eyes full of compassion, and in that gaze, I felt completely seen. There were no judgments here, just an invitation to awaken. "Hassan," he said, "you are caught in a spiritual war, an unseen battle for your soul, and the deception surrounding you is more profound than you can imagine." As he spoke, visions coursed through my mind, insights into the hidden agendas of those in power, the elite who thrive on society's division and ignorance. I saw how fear and manipulation crafted the world we live in, a reality built upon lies, aimed at keeping us blind to the truth. I witnessed the chaos of conflict, wars that have become mere pawns in a game of control, leaders swaying public opinion through crafted narratives while the innocent suffer. It struck me how the very systems I upheld in the courtroom mirrored the deceptions laid out before me. Every time I adjudicated a case, I felt the enormity of the choices I made, yet I had never fully grasped the depth of their implications. "You must understand," Jesus urged, "that what's at stake is not just justice, but the spiritual awakening of humanity. Each decision you make can either be a step toward enlightenment or a perpetuation of the darkness." My heart raced as waves of urgency washed over me, and I realized this wasn't just about me. It was about everyone caught in the web of deception. As the visions intensified, I felt the pull of responsibility compel me. It became clear that I had a role to fulfill, not merely as a judge in the court of law, but as a conduit of the divine truth unfolding around me. Jesus illuminated the complexities of our reality, revealing how technology could be harnessed for enlightenment or twisted into a tool of oppression. The truth is that we are facing a spiritual war that is as much about awakening as it is about recognizing the systems that bind us. I felt as though the weight of the world lay upon my shoulders. The call for awakening echoed through the chambers of my heart. "The truth must be revealed," he implored. "You cannot remain silent. Your voice is necessary. You have to fight for the souls steeped in ignorance." Just as I began to grasp the enormity of this responsibility, I felt myself being drawn back, the brilliant light of his presence receding into the distance. I returned to my body with a jolt, gasping for air as reality settled back around me. The sounds of the courtroom flooded in, yet they felt strangely distant, as if I were witnessing it all from behind a glass barrier. I looked around at the people seated in the room, those whose lives hung in the balance, unaware of the greater battle being waged for their souls. With every fiber of my being, I knew I couldn't go back to simply enforcing the law. I had to embody the truth I had just witnessed. The awakening that had ignited within me demanded action, and it was time for me to confront the spiritual war that raged on around us, to bring the light of revelation into a world shrouded in darkness. Sitting on the bench in that courtroom, I felt a hollowness within me that I couldn't shake. My name is Hassan, and I'm a judge in Washington, D.C. To the outside world, I appeared as a pillar of integrity, a strict enforcer of the law. But inside, I was wrestling with emotions that left me feeling suffocated. Daily prayers that once brought me comfort now felt like an empty ritual, a performance devoid of genuine connection. As I presided over cases, I couldn't help but wonder about the authenticity of my faith and the life I had chosen. Was I merely going through the motions, adhering to traditions without understanding their true meaning? My dreams had been restless, haunted by shadows that seemed to whisper of deeper truths I hadn't dared to confront. On the brink of a significant verdict, I paused amid my thoughts to bow my head and pray. But instead of the usual solace, an unsettling sense of emptiness washed over me. It felt as if I was speaking to a void, with no response echoing back. The weight of the decisions I was about to make pressed heavily on my chest, further fueling my sense of disconnection. I began questioning everything: my purpose, my commitment to justice, and the faith that provided my moral compass. Was I merely perpetuating a system that often felt rigged, serving some hidden agenda I could no longer ignore? The thoughts spiraled in my mind like a storm, becoming more consuming with each passing moment. Drawn deep into this existential crisis, I found myself drifting into a state of near unconsciousness right there in the courtroom. What happened next was not merely a blackout. It was a descent into another realm. I saw myself enveloped in brilliant light, transported away from the confines of my earthly existence. In this sacred place, I encountered Jesus, standing in radiant glory, embodying love and acceptance. Hassan. He called my name, and in that moment, my spirit felt alive, infused with purpose. This was no ordinary encounter. This was a revelation dipped in profound truth, a call to awaken from the slumber that had gripped my soul for too long. As I stood before him, Jesus began to unveil a reality that had been obscured from my understanding. "You are part of a spiritual war," he explained, "one that is fought not just in the hearts of individuals, but across the very fabric of society." Visions flooded my mind, scenes of injustice and manipulation playing out across the globe. I witnessed leaders peddling fear and division, manipulating the masses, while the elite continued to consolidate their power in the shadows. The deception was deep, entwined in the very structures we regarded as stable and solid. "Your faith," he said, "must evolve beyond mere adherence to tradition. You are being called to see the truth, a truth that exposes the hidden agendas behind the struggles of humanity." As I absorbed his words, waves of urgency washed over me. I began to comprehend the extent of the societal fractures, the wars fueled by ignorance and hatred. Jesus revealed to me how technology, once viewed as a beacon of progress, had been twisted into a weapon of societal control. Social media feeds filled with division, news manipulated to serve the interests of a few, the truth buried beneath the rubble. "This deception is suffocating the spirit of humanity," he urged, "and you are among those tasked with awakening others to this reality." The realization struck me hard. My role was not simply to preside over cases, but to challenge the very narratives that kept people trapped in cycles of despair. In that vivid moment, I felt the weight of responsibility settle upon my shoulders, igniting a fire within me. I was being called to rise above the confines of my existence and to take a stand against the forces that sought to keep us divided. "You must help others see beyond the illusions," Jesus implored. "The awakening starts with you." I felt the clarity of his message resonate within me, a charge to take action, to break the silence that so many in positions of power suffered under. Yet before I could process the enormity of this calling, I sensed a sudden pull, as if the light were withdrawing, dragging me back toward my earthly body. The realities of my life surged back in a flash, and I gasped awake, the courtroom flooding back into focus. But my perspective had shifted utterly. Now, standing amidst my colleagues and the parties awaiting judgment, I felt transformed. This wasn't just about law. It was about a battle for souls, a journey to reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. The burden of that knowledge weighed heavily as I looked at the faces around me. People desperate for justice, unaware of the greater spiritual conflict at play. My heart was racing as I prepared to deliver my verdict, but it was now imbued with a sense of purpose I had never known. I had seen the depth of the spiritual war we were embroiled in, and it was time for me to speak out, to share the revelations that had been entrusted to me. The moment had arrived for an awakening, not just for myself, but for those who needed to see the truth for what it was. As I sat in the courtroom, waiting for the jury to deliver their verdict, an unsettling tension filled the air. My heart raced and a sense of impending change coursed through me. I'm Hassan, a judge shaped by my commitment to the law and rigorous adherence to my faith. But today, the weight of my responsibilities felt insurmountable. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. and an overwhelming light enveloped me, blinding yet soothing. In that moment, the world around me faded into nothingness. I braced myself, feeling drawn into a radiant vision that transcended my understanding. And then, I heard it. My name, softly spoken, yet undeniably powerful. Hassan. The voice pierced through the light, wrapping around my spirit like a warm embrace. I knew instinctively who it was. Jesus stood before me, an embodiment of love, compassion, and understanding. His presence radiated warmth, dissolving the fears and doubts that had plagued my heart. In that instant, I felt a profound awakening within me, as if layers of darkness were being stripped away. Here was truth, illuminated like never before, a stark contrast to the deception I had so often witnessed in my life. As I gazed into his eyes, I was flooded with revelation. Jesus began to unveil the hidden truths that had been obscured by the constructs of religion and society. "You are part of a spiritual war, Hassan," he revealed. "A battle fought not only in the hearts of men, but also in the very fabric of your world." I saw visions of war and strife, not just across distant lands, but flaring up in the hearts of everyday people, manipulated by an elite few who thrived on division. The agendas of those in power became painfully clear, as their thirst for control masked itself behind the veneer of politics, religion, and societal norms. I felt my heart race as he continued, exposing the deception that held humanity in chains. "The truth you long for is buried beneath layers of fear and misinformation." Jesus spoke, his voice steady and strong. "Your spiritual journey is not just for your own awakening. It is for all who suffer under the weight of these lies." The images flowed through me. Leaders manipulating headlines, technology systematically dividing communities, lives lived in ignorance while the truth remained hidden away. My heart ached for those ensnared by these illusions, each moment lingering with urgency. In that surreal experience, a sense of deep responsibility washed over me. I was being called not only to witness these truths, but to become a vessel for change. Your role is to awaken others, to guide them beyond the deceptions holding them captive. Jesus urged, igniting a fire within me, stronger than anything I had ever felt. This truth demanded action. It wasn't enough to acknowledge the revelations privately. I knew now it was essential to speak out against the hidden agendas perpetuating lies and divisions, to challenge the paradigms that kept people divided. My life as a judge was more than implications of the law. It was a call to wisdom and compassion in a world desperate for light. But just as quickly as the light had surrounded me, I felt the pull back to my physical self. Reality immersed me once again, but I was irrevocably changed. The courtroom buzzed with activity, yet I felt a profound disconnect. I could hear the voices of the jurors and the murmurs of the gallery, but I was now engaged in a much larger dialogue, a conversation that echoed beyond these walls. The verdict awaited, but I now understood it was a mere reflection of a greater choice, one that could ultimately lead to awakening or sinking deeper into denial. The urgency of my experience propelled me forward, leaving me to grapple with how to convey the revelations entrusted to me, engaging my colleagues and community in a crucial discussion that would ripple through the fabric of society. Returning to my daily life after that overwhelming experience in the courtroom felt like stepping into a storm. I'm Hassan, and my moment of revelation with Jesus had shaken me to my core. The light I had encountered still glimmered in my mind, yet the world I re-entered was filled with shadows. As I began to share my experience, the backlash was swift and brutal. My community, the very people I had stood beside for years, turned against me. They labeled me a traitor, someone who had abandoned our values, and the fear of losing them cut deeply. Their disapproval felt like an anchor dragging me further into turmoil as guilt settled heavily on my shoulders. Every whispered accusation echoed in my mind, amplifying my sense of isolation. I grappled with intense feelings of guilt. After all, I had grown up immersed in these beliefs, nurtured by tradition, faith, and the expectations of family. Yet, I couldn't shake the truth that had been unveiled to me, the revelation that there existed a spiritual war beyond what I'd ever understood. The juxtaposition between my past and the transformative truths I had encountered created a dissonance within me, a battle raging not just externally, but deep within my spirit. How could I reconcile my newfound understanding with the life I had known? I haunted memories of the spiritual encounter, reliving Jesus' words, "You are part of a spiritual awakening." As those words rang in my mind, the urgency started to flourish again. I understood now that the hidden agendas controlling so much of our reality could not be ignored. The elite, with their manipulation of information and fear, were crafting a world where truth was obscured and deception reigned supreme. I felt a pain in my heart for those who continued to walk in darkness, unaware of the spiritual chains holding them captive. The thought of being unable to articulate this urgent message gnawed at me. In the days that followed, I began experiencing restless nights filled with dreams that blurred the lines between reality and the divine. I would often wake in a cold sweat, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. The pain I felt for my community was rooted not only in their rejection, but in my growing awareness of how deeply they struggled. I longed to bring them into the light, yet I was terrified of the personal cost of such a revelation. Would they ever understand? Would my own family, so staunch in their beliefs, ever accept this awakening? What if my pursuit of truth led to further alienation, deepening the divide I felt between my past and present? Every moment became a test of faith, a constant balancing act between legacy and liberation. I knew I had to share the revelations I had received, yet every time I considered doing so, fear gripped me. What if their rejection turned into hostility? I felt the weight of their expectations pulling me back into the darkness, while the light of truth beckoned me forward. In conversations with colleagues, I found myself questioning the laws I had once accepted without hesitation, seeking to understand how those very structures had been manipulated to serve the interests of powerful figures at the expense of truth. I felt a fire igniting within me, urging me to break free from the shackles of fear and to start a conversation about the deeper implications of our shared humanity, but time was slipping through my fingers. In a clandestine quest for understanding, I found myself pacing my quiet home, the walls closing in, as I pondered the transformative encounter that had changed everything. I'm Hassan, a judge trained to uphold the law, but now I was wrestling with an awakening that challenged the very fabric of my beliefs. The connection I had made with Jesus stirred something deep within me, pushing me to search for answers in places I had once considered off-limits. Late at night, with my heart pounding in my chest, I began exploring Christian texts, each word revealing layers of truth buried beneath the surface of societal conventions. As I delved into the teachings, my mind raced with questions. I watched testimonies from individuals who had experienced their own spiritual awakenings, their stories resonating with the struggle I faced. They spoke of hidden agendas, of the elite manipulating our perceptions, crafting narratives that kept us shackled to ignorance and fear. With each testimony, I grew increasingly aware of the spiritual war being fought in silence, as people around me remained blissfully unaware of the deception entwined in their lives. I felt an overwhelming urge to share this newfound understanding with those around me, but the fear of losing my identity loomed over me like a dark cloud. Amid this turmoil, I found solace in a small, supportive community of fellow seekers. These individuals understood the conflict of faith and identity, each one wrestling with their own doubts and revelations. In their company, I felt a sense of belonging, a collective yearning for a deeper truth that transcended cultural and religious divides. Yet, there remained an inner discord. I experienced moments of profound peace in their presence, juxtaposed with the gnawing anxiety over what it meant for my standing within my traditional community. How could I reconcile this awakening with the life I had built? Did seeking the truth inherently mean abandoning the values I had lived by for so long? As I exchanged thoughts and experiences with this community, The burden of guilt became more palpable. My family would never understand this transformation. The very thought of their reactions sent shivers down my spine. I had walked the path of a judge, upheld the principles that shaped my upbringing, but now, the truths I was uncovering felt like a betrayal. Uncertainty crept in. What if my quest for understanding drove a wedge between me and those I loved? I began to understand that this journey was both a blessing and a curse, a path leading toward liberation but fraught with the potential for deep personal loss. Every interaction outside this safe space heightened my anxiety. I felt as if I were wearing a mask, one that concealed the awakening raging within. The world around me moved in a rhythm that felt dissonant to my new understanding. Conversations often revolved around issues I had once accepted without question: societal divisions, political maneuvers, and the propaganda that shaped public opinion. I quietly observed how easily fear could be weaponized, how technology had become a tool of manipulation, and how small moments of truth were drowned in a tidal wave of deception. But I couldn't remain passive. I needed to amplify the call for awakening, even if the journey terrified me. So I resolved to embrace my role in this spiritual war. I started with baby steps. Discussions with friends and colleagues, planting small seeds of thought that might one day bloom into understanding. The fear remained, a constant companion, but with it came a flicker of hope. If I could awaken just one person to the truth I had witnessed, perhaps that would be enough to break through the barriers that had held so many captive. Each moment felt pivotal, each encounter a chance to encourage those around me to seek a deeper understanding, to challenge the hidden agendas that govern their lives. The urgency of this path intensified as I began to feel the weight not only of my own awakening, but of the entire community's awakening in our battle against deception. As I sat in silence, reflecting on everything that had transpired, it became clear to me that my experience was far greater than just a personal revelation. I've always been Hassan, just a judge in Washington, but now I realize I'm part of something monumental, a spiritual awakening that demands to be shared. When I encountered Jesus, everything I thought I knew unraveled around me, like threads pulled from fabric. The truths I uncovered were not meant to be hoarded. They were meant to enlighten others who are still prisoners of their own fears and deceptions. This wasn't merely about my journey. It was about a universal call to arms against the hidden agenda we all live under, a force that keeps us divided and disengaged from our true potential. Every day, I felt the weight of this mission settle onto my shoulders more heavily. The more I learned about the spiritual war being waged around us, the more compelled I became to break my silence despite the risks ahead. I developed an unwavering conviction about the deceptions crafted by the elite, manipulative forces that perpetuate division among us, serving their interests while we fight one another over trivialities. I recalled how Jesus had revealed these truths to me, showing me how easily we are swayed by fear and misinformation. The world needed to awaken, and perhaps I was meant to be one of the catalysts. In practical terms, I knew this would be no easy task. The fear of backlash loomed large over me. Fear of losing my standing within my community, fear of rejection from my family, and fear of being labeled an outcast. Yet, the urgency of what I had witnessed gnawed at me relentlessly. I became increasingly aware that I was standing at the precipice of something profound. The reality of our collective suffering was echoed in the lives of those around me, each person's story reflecting the deceit that was entrenched in the fabric of society. I couldn't let my desire for comfort keep me silent any longer. The stakes were far too high. I immersed myself in discussions, joining online forums and local gatherings where others questioned the status quo. With each exchange, I felt a sense of empowerment building, a shared understanding that we were not alone in our struggles. I began crafting my narrative, weaving together the threads of my personal experience with the larger tapestry of awakening. I shared my encounter with Jesus, the visions of the hidden agendas, and how they shape our world. The response was often mixed, But I saw glimmers of understanding in the eyes of those who listened, people yearning to step out of the shadows cast by the deception surrounding us. As I ventured deeper into this mission, the tension grew palpable. I found myself increasingly aware of how the barriers designed to keep us divided were still standing tall. Conversation shifted toward the stark reality of wars, fought not only on distant battlefields, but in the minds and hearts of everyday people. The manipulation of technology as a weapon against us, the ways in which our perceptions are molded by the elite, it felt like I was uncovering a dark underbelly of reality few were willing to confront. I knew that the time for awakening was now. Each day presented new opportunities to challenge the narratives that pinned us down, and I felt compelled to rise, to use my voice to lead others toward the truth I had glimpsed so vividly in the light of Jesus. The day I left my home marked not just a physical departure, but a profound act of liberation that I had never dared to imagine. My name is Hassan, and for years I was grounded by the expectations of family, community, and the weight of tradition. But after that fateful encounter with Jesus, everything shifted. It was clear to me that my past life, with all its comforts and restrictions, was a prison I could no longer inhabit. What I had learned through my spiritual awakening beckoned me toward a new identity, one that aligned with the truth I had finally embraced. Stepping outside into the open air was both terrifying and exhilarating. I felt the weight of my old self being shed like a skin, yet the fear of the unknown clawed at me fiercely. I knew that the journey ahead was not just literal but metaphorical, a crossing through the deserts of my previous life, filled with uncertainty and pain, yet also glittering with the promise of spiritual nourishment. As I traversed this new path, I became acutely aware of the spiritual war surrounding me. Every interaction, every moment spent alone in contemplation, reinforced the reality that I was now engaged in a battle for truth, a fight against the hidden agendas perpetuated by those in power. As I ventured deeper into this awakening, Jesus remained a guiding light in my life. Every step I took was infused with a desire to serve others with the truths I had uncovered. I sought out communities where I could share my testimony, where others were also grappling with their own spiritual crises. Each connection I forged was a testament to the interconnectedness of our struggles. Individuals trapped by the same deceptions that had held me captive for so long. I shared how the elite manipulate our perceptions, distorting the truth of our realities, and how breaking free from that deception was the first step toward genuine enlightenment. In the evenings, I would sit around fires or in small groups, recounting my journey. I described the revelation I received through Jesus, the insights into the political machinations shaping our lives and the societal divisions that echoed through history. The more I spoke, the more I could see the light flickering in the eyes of those listening, a reflection of their own yearning for awakening. There was urgency in the air, a collective understanding that the time for silence had passed, and it was now our responsibility to share what we knew. Yet even amidst this growing community, the echoes of doubt occasionally crept in. Was I truly equipped to guide others? Every encounter deepened my resolve, but I couldn't ignore the looming shadow of fear. I understood the risks of standing against the prevailing narrative and the potential backlash from the very people I once called family. Would they see me as a traitor for my beliefs, just as I had feared they would? Nevertheless, that fear only fueled my determination to stand firm. I saw the spiritual war not only as an internal battle, but as a fierce outer struggle against the systems designed to keep us divided and marginalized. The awakening I experienced demanded action, not just passive acceptance. With Jesus as my inspiration, I felt compelled to challenge the status quo. As I continued my journey through the landscapes of both the world and my own heart, I realized that liberation is a process intertwined with pain, love, courage, and vulnerability. Each encounter with someone who needed hope rekindled my own faith, creating a cycle of sharing that spread beyond any single conversation. I could envision a future where communities formed around truth, where the deception that had long existed would crumble under the weight of collective awakening. With every step, the urgency grew. This was not merely about my own transformation, it was about awakening the hearts of many, igniting a flame of truth that could transform lives and challenge the very foundations of the hidden agendas at play. Years have passed since I renounced my former identity as a judge, and I now find myself living in a secure location, committed to a path that feels right for my soul. Each day serves as a reminder of my journey and the spiritual war that continues to unfold around us. I often reflect on the profound impact my testimony has had on those I've encountered. Individuals grappling with their own struggles who yearn for truth and awakening. I've dedicated myself to guiding others down similar paths, helping them navigate the treacherous waters of deception that are so prevalent in today's society. My heart aches when I think of my estranged family and the chasm that now lies between us. Though I find solace in the individuals I help, I still hold on to the hope that one day the truth I've embraced will reach them as well. It seemed impossible to reconcile my role in the spiritual war against the hidden agenda of the elite while longing for acceptance from the very people I left behind. I pray for their awakening, knowing that the love I have for them transcends the divisions this journey has created. The realization that they might still be trapped in old beliefs drives me to work even harder to spread the truth. Each conversation I facilitate, each testimony shared, reinforces the collective power of awakening. It's astonishing how many lives are affected by a single story. I see it in the flickers of recognition, the tears of release, and the smiles of transformation that light up the faces of those who finally grasp the heights of spiritual freedom. For me, these moments are a testament to the urgency of our mission, to break down the walls of deception built by those in power and to usher in the light of truth. The struggles of my past are now a catalyst for empathy, allowing me to connect deeply with others who are on their own journeys toward liberation. Jesus remains a constant presence in my life, my guide, my strength, my source of unwavering hope. His revelations have equipped me with the insights needed to engage in meaningful dialogue about the societal divisions and manipulation that have become so normalized. I feel a profound responsibility to challenge the narratives fed to us by the elite, who thrive on chaos and fear. I passionately share the message of love, unity, and awakening, reminding everyone that we are more powerful together, standing against the forces that seek to keep us divided. The healing that comes from collective recognition of the truth is unmatched, and I try to cultivate that compassion in every interaction. Despite the fear that sometimes creeps in, a reminder of the potential backlash that may come my way, I'm resolute in my commitment to this path. The experiences I've had and the truths I've uncovered demand action. I need to be the voice calling others to rise from the shadows, to abandon their chains and step boldly into the light. As I look forward, I carry the weight of my family's absence, alongside the burden of this calling. My journey isn't just about personal awakening. It's about awakening the hearts and minds of those still trapped in the veil of deception. The spiritual war continues, and I remain steadfast in my belief that one day, together, we can unveil the hidden truths that bind us and embrace the divine purpose that awaits. My life before the revelation felt like a continuous cycle, a loop of expectations and obligations that I had grown accustomed to navigating as a judge in Washington, D.C. I was Hassan, respected within my community, yet internally, I grappled with a profound emptiness I couldn't shake. It wasn't until a moment of unforeseen reckoning that everything changed. During a particularly tense jury verdict, where the weight of justice hung heavily, I experienced something beyond that room, something that transcended my previous understanding of existence. I collapsed, and in that moment I was pulled into the depths of my soul, leading me to an extraordinary encounter with Jesus. In that boundless space, Jesus stood before me, radiant and full of love, a stark contrast to the confusion I felt in my earthly life. "Hassan," he said, calling my name with authority and warmth. It was then I understood that I was not just facing a personal crisis, but was part of a larger narrative, a spiritual war that many live through, often unaware. He revealed to me the hidden agendas that govern our reality, showing how the elite manipulate our perceptions through fear, lies, and division. I felt a surge of energy as these truths washed over me, compelling me to awaken not only to my own situation, but to the collective struggle humanity faced. In the visions that followed, I saw the world becoming splintered, families at odds, communities fractured by ideology and misinformation. Jesus explained that the deception was not just personal but systemic, designed to keep us bound to ignorance. This is a spiritual war, he declared, voicing the urgency of the struggle. I watched as powerful figures directed the ebb and flow of public sentiment, perpetuating chaos while maintaining their stronghold over the masses. You have to rise above this, Hassan. You are meant to be a beacon of truth, he emphasized, instilling in me a fierce responsibility to challenge the narratives that keep us divided. It felt overwhelming, this weight of knowledge. I was acutely aware of how easily we can become ensnared in the fabric of lies. Each day as I returned to my life, I felt the emotional and spiritual toll of this conflict. Though I appeared composed, inside I was a cacophony of emotions, fear, outrage, and a sense of duty to break my silence. I encountered people still enmeshed in the very deceptions I had witnessed, and through every conversation I felt that urgency pressing down on me like an unbearable weight. I recalled the clarity of my experience, how Jesus' revelation had shattered my previous notions and opened my mind to the vast possibilities of spiritual freedom. Yet, the fear of standing out, of losing the life I had built, lingered just beneath the surface. I watched as my family distanced themselves from me, unable or unwilling to comprehend the transformative journey I had undergone. With every encounter, I was reminded that faith can be both liberating and ensnaring. It depends on how one engages with the truth. The emotional cost of my awakening resided within me, a constant struggle between my newfound commitment to evangelize and the loss I felt regarding my estranged loved ones. Despite this tug of war, I resolved to share my truths, each story important, each moment a potential spark for awakening in another. As I moved through this journey, I began gathering those who sought deeper understanding, forming connections with individuals eager to escape their own deceptions. Together, we forged a community rooted in love, unity, and the desire for genuine understanding, challenging the manipulative narratives forced upon us. Each testimony shared added layers to our collective experience, weaving together diverse paths that led to a singular truth. I reminded everyone that the spiritual war we faced wasn't just external. It also resided in the hearts and minds of every individual willing to search for the truth in these trying times. As I bore witness to others' transformations, I felt an overwhelming surge of hope. Each awakening was a step toward breaking free from the chains that bound us. As I stand here today, at the crossroads of my old life and this new journey of awakening, I'm reminded of the light that shattered my darkness, the pivotal moment when Jesus called my name, revealing the hidden truths of our existence. I am Hassan, and my once rigid understanding of justice has evolved into something greater, something more profound. A recognition that we are all entangled in a spiritual war that seeks to keep us bound in ignorance and fear. But I am not alone in this battle. You too are woven into this narrative, part of a larger tapestry that calls us to awaken and reclaim our voices. Have you ever felt that stirring within you? A whisper challenging the status quo, urging you to dig deeper into the mysteries of your own experiences. I invite you to explore those feelings. What has your journey revealed to you? Because the truth is, we are all called to rise up, to illuminate the shadows that have long kept us in silence. I want to hear your stories, your moments of awakening. Share them in the comments. Each reflection adds to the collective understanding we desperately need in this tumultuous time. I urge you not only to share but also to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activate the notification bell. This is essential for you to keep pace with the unfolding revelations that will empower us all. There are truths that await, insights that could ignite your own awakening, and we must journey together through the unfolding mysteries that surround us. In the next video, we will delve into another powerful testimony, one of transformation and enlightenment that will challenge everything you thought was true. Life beyond belief is waiting to be explored, and I hope you are ready to open the door. Until then, remember, the journey doesn't end here. It begins anew with each step we take towards the truth. Thank you for joining me. I'm Hassan, and as we navigate the spiritual battlefield together, may we face it with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to uncover the light within.